Joining us from our Denver bureau, Mimi Wesson, a law professor at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And also from Denver, Daniel Recht, a criminal defense attorney and the immediate past president of the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar. Let us begin at the end of the trial with the closing arguments. In particular, people seem to be focusing on Michael Tiger's emotional conclusion when he walked over to Terry Nichols, put his hand on his shoulder and said, "This is my brother." And to the jury, he said, "He is in your hands." Ms. Wesson, your thoughts? Was that working?
You know, I'm probably just a cynical old ex-prosecutor, but I didn't find that moment as moving as many people did. He had preceded that moment by telling an anecdote, Michael Tiger, about how 30 years ago he'd gone to Washington, D.C. for the first time. And he said the first public building that he saw there was the Supreme Court building with its inscription, "Equal Justice Before Law." And old cynic that I am, I found myself thinking, really? Like, he closed his eyes as he was driven through the town and just opened them when he saw the Supreme Court building? So while I was still thinking that probably unworthy and cynical thought, he walked over behind his client, put his hands on his shoulders and said, "This man is my brother." I wasn't as taken with that moment as many others were.
So a little over the top, Mr. Recht, what did you think of closing arguments?
Well, let's stick with that very topic. I thought it, frankly, was very effective. And I particularly if you accept that many of these jurors trusted Michael Tiger. They looked to him as the person that was giving the answers in the courtroom. And then Michael Tiger showed them that he trusted his client. And the idea is, if they trust him and he trusts the client, maybe they, the jury, will trust the client as well.
Mr. Recht, take a look at the prosecution case from a defense attorney's eyes. There are strong points?
I think that I have to say, in the closing arguments, they did a very good job of taking these hundreds of little pieces of a complicated jigsaw puzzle and putting them together one by one until Beth Wilkinson painted the picture she wanted of Nichols being this conspirator. So it was a very good closing.
Well, it seems that so many people are pointing out this fact. They have not yet established, or they have not been able to establish, a motive for Terry Nichols. Is that a weak point?
I think it is. I mean, you know, Tiger made a point of saying there's nobody that will say, nobody the whole trial that ever got on the witness stand and said that Nichols was rabid about the Waco thing. Nobody. Now, people said that about McVeigh, but nobody said it about Nichols. So they tried to make much of that.
Ms. Wesson, Jeffrey Tubin, our legal analyst, made much of the fact that there really wasn't that smoking gun, that single piece of evidence that you could point to, that the prosecutors were having to piece together a lot of bits of evidence. Do you think that that's enough?
Smoking gun, a single piece of evidence that all by itself would convince the jury of the defendant's guilt is not the case. I think the strength of the government's case here was that it didn't rest on one or two or five pieces of evidence, but that it was an interlocking series of pieces of evidence, each of which reinforced the others around it.
Do you think the bad aroma around Michael Fortier is a problem for them?
I don't think it's that big a problem because the significant parts of his testimony were corroborated by other evidence.
Now, from a prosecutor's point of view, look at the defense case. There are strong points?
I think the defense strong points consisted of the defense attacks on two prosecution points that, curiously, the prosecutors need not have made. One is the prosecution's insistence that Nichols was present at Geary Lake State Park the day before the bombing to assemble the bomb. I don't think they proved that beyond a reasonable doubt. I think Mr. Tiger and Mr. Woods were right about that. And second, the